My father was dying in a bed that wasn't his. The walls were beige, the air overly clean, and the clock above the doorway ticked loud enough to remind you that time was being counted. He hadn't spoken in 2 days, but I still held his hand like it mattered. I was 38 years old, sitting in a hospice chair with a cup of vending machine coffee, and 1,000 unsaid things lodged in my throat. Samantha was at a wellness retreat in Sedona. "Just for a few days," she'd said, touching my shoulder gently. "I'll come back recharged." He'd want that. I didn't argue. Didn't point out how she never visited him unless someone else was watching. Instead, I nodded once and said I understood, but I didn't. The nurses said it would be any day now. They'd said it with that particular tone that tells you they've seen this hundreds of times. I asked the right questions, thanked them, sat with him anyway. Dad wasn't a rich man. He worked 42 years in a shipping warehouse and came home every night smelling like cardboard and grit. Didn't believe in fancy things. Drove the same truck for 15 years and thought buying name-brand cereal was a luxury. But he was smart, cautious, saved every penny he could. He didn't trust big banks, said they smiled while picking your pocket. Instead, he kept everything at a little credit union 2 miles from his house. Never did online banking. Still wrote checks. I used to tease him about it. Now I wasn't laughing. 2 weeks before the hospice admitted him, he'd told me something in passing. "Everything you need is in the lockbox. Same one I showed you after your mom passed. Don't let anyone else touch it." He meant Samantha. I didn't say anything out loud, but I'd noticed her tone when he got sick. Sympathetic, but detached. Words like estate planning and downsizing slipped into conversation too easily. She never asked how he was doing just when he might need full-time care. Then came the retreat. I sat beside him, listening to the uneven rhythm of his breath and the ticking of the cheap wall clock. The coffee had gone cold. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was waiting. Samantha texted me a photo of her feet by a fire pit, toes painted coral pink, steam rising from a nearby hot tub. Finally exhaling, she wrote, "This place is amazing. You should come next time." The message came while I was spooning ice chips onto my father's lips, watching him struggle to swallow. I didn't reply. That night, she sent more photos. A yoga mat in the grass. A wooden bowl of berries and seeds captioned, "Breakfast Goals." A filtered selfie with someone named Kendra from Chicago. She said the retreat was peaceful, transformational. I said I was glad she was getting what she needed. I wasn't. Something didn't sit right. It wasn't the absence I'd learned to live with emotional distance, but the way her messages felt curated, too polished, too external. Like someone showing off a vacation, not someone escaping to heal. Late that night, after my father had fallen back into the fitful breathing of the half-sedated, I opened her photo of the fire pit again. Saved it. Uploaded it to a metadata reader online. Just curiosity, I told myself. The GPS coordinates placed her at a boutique hotel 3 towns east of Sedona. Not a retreat center. Not anywhere even close to the healing sanctuary she'd described. I didn't call her. Didn't confront. I bookmarked the result and started a folder. It wasn't the first time I'd done that. Over the past year, I'd noticed small shifts. Passwords changed. A second phone, she said, was for work, though I never saw her use it for calls. Transactions on our joint account marked miscellaneous and wellness services. I hadn't brought it up. Not because I didn't notice, but because I was waiting to see if she'd ever tell me. She hadn't. My father's breathing had a hitch in it now. The kind nurses call a pattern. I checked the time. Midnight. Another photo from Samantha came through her journal, open on a table next to a glass of wine. Reflections. Releasing the old. I stared at it for a long time, then turned off my phone. The old wasn't hers to release. She thought I didn't know what she was doing. But I'd already started preparing. Quietly. Precisely. Just like my father taught me. The retreat wasn't the beginning. It was the test. His grip was weak. but it was still there. I sat by his bed, same chair, same scratchy wool blanket pulled over his legs. His breathing had slowed shallow and rhythmic like a pendulum with a fraying rope. The nurse said he might not wake up again. I stayed anyway. Then, around 3:00 a.m., his fingers tightened around mine. Not much. Just enough to make me look up. "Be careful," he whispered, barely audible. His eyes flickered open, unfocused but sharp in some deeper way. "Money." That was all he said. Then his head sank back into the pillow, and the grip faded like the last exhale of a long, finished thought. I didn't need more. I knew exactly what he meant. Years ago, after Mom passed, he sat me down in his garage. Same folding chair we used on game nights. He handed me a beer and a manila envelope full of documents, account statements, property tax receipts, a photocopy of a handwritten will. Nothing fancy. All labeled in block caps, underlined twice. "You ever see people get weird when someone dies?" he asked. I said, yeah, I'd seen it during a cousin's estate mess. He nodded. "They start circling. Not out of grief, out of instinct. Like vultures. They smell weakness in the air, and they don't even realize they're doing it. It's just who they are." "You think we've got people like that?" I asked. He didn't answer directly, just looked out across the driveway and took a long sip of his beer. "I don't have much, but what I do have, I worked for. Paid off the house. Saved enough to leave behind something simple. You're the only one who knows where it all is." That night stuck with me more than I realized at the time. So when he said money from a hospice bed with less than a day of life left in him, it wasn't a question. It was a warning. Not about numbers in a bank, but about people who see grief as an opening. Samantha hadn't asked how he was doing in weeks, but she had asked twice if the house would go through probate. He'd seen it coming, and now, so had I. My father died at 7:12 the next morning. The nurse called me sweetheart when she broke the news, which I found oddly comforting. She handed me a plastic bag of his effects wallet, wristwatch, a folded photo of my mother, and said I could take as much time as I needed. He looked peaceful, like he'd finally found somewhere quiet to rest. I didn't cry, just placed my hand on his chest, thanked him, and walked out of the room with the kind of calm that feels like armor. Samantha texted around noon. "I just heard. I'm so sorry. Flights are insane. They're overbooked from Phoenix. I'm trying." I didn't reply. She wasn't coming. We both knew it. The service was held 2 days later at the small cemetery just outside town. Modest. Like him. My Aunt Karen brought lemon bars. My cousin read Psalm 23. Only a dozen people came. But every one of them mattered. Afterward, we gathered in the church basement. Folding chairs, lukewarm coffee, finger sandwiches. It felt like a potluck for the end of an era. Karen came up to me near the table of store-bought cookies. She had that concerned tilt to her head, like something was itching at the back of her mind. "I tried to send flowers," she said. "The florist called back, said the card didn't go through." I frowned. "The church card?" "No, the one I always use. I've had it for years. Never a problem. But the florist said the account declined." "Maybe fraud protection?" She shook her head. I checked. It was marked insufficient funds, but I haven't touched that account since Christmas. That got my attention. I didn't say anything right away, just nodded and thanked her. Later, I stepped outside into the January cold, pulled out my phone, and logged into Dad's credit union account. Balance: 3.87. It had been over 80, a month ago. All retirement. All earned. The transactions didn't make sense. Transfers to unfamiliar accounts. A pattern. A method. I closed the app, slid my phone into my coat, and looked up at the gray sky. Samantha had sent another text. "Thinking of you. Sending light." I stood in the frost-covered parking lot for a long time, watching my breath fog the air. She thought I'd just accept this. She thought the funeral was the end. She had no idea what had already started. The login screen hadn't changed in years. Same dull blue banner. Same security questions. My dad refused to update. What's your favorite tool? Crescent wrench. What's your mother's maiden name? Langford. I logged into the credit union using the information he gave me 3 months ago. Back when he still had energy to remind me about things that would matter soon. The checking account showed 3.87. The savings, less than 60. I clicked through the transaction history. The drop started slowly. Then, 4 days before his death, it nosedived. 12. 0 external transfer. 8. 500 external transfer. 16. 200 external transfer. And more. In total, over 67. 0 drained in under a week. Every transaction was clean, digital, logged. But when I clicked for recipient info, all I got was a line of text in gray italics. Beneficiary details redacted due to account privacy protections. Privacy. It wasn't hard to guess who it was protecting. I copied the routing number from the transfer log and ran it through a small spreadsheet I kept for personal banking records. One of those quiet little habits you develop when you stop trusting luck. It matched. Samantha's personal bank. The same one she'd used since before we got married. I remembered because I'd helped her set up direct deposit after her last job change. I stared at the screen for a long time. Not angry. Not surprised. She hadn't even waited until after the funeral. She'd transferred the money while I was still reading psalms over his casket. I downloaded every statement, screenshotted each transaction, uploaded the files to 2 secure DriveZone cloud, 1 hardware, made copies. Then, I logged out. Samantha was in the kitchen that night when I got home. Glass of wine in one hand, phone in the other. She smiled when she saw me. How was the service? Small, I said. Quiet. She nodded. Your dad would have liked that. I just looked at her. Thought about the 67 0 she thought I hadn't noticed. Thought about her using his death as a spreadsheet opportunity. I'm going to take a shower, I said. She kissed my cheek. I'll join you later. I nodded and walked down the hall. I already knew what I needed to do. I didn't confront her. That would have been premature. You don't kick in a locked door when you still have time to pick it. And I had time. Instead, I made a call to someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Elliot Crane, family friend, former forensic auditor, now semi-retired, and running quiet compliance checks for private clients. The kind of man who knew what to look for and how to look without being seen. He answered on the second ring. Daniel Briggs. Thought you fell off the grid. Need a favor, I said. Someone die. Yeah. He was quiet for a beat. You'll have everything by Monday. That night, while Samantha watched something loud on Netflix, I opened my laptop and started laying the groundwork. First, I installed endpoint tracking on my own device keyloggers, access logs, login pings, just in case she tried to cover her tracks by snooping into mine. Second, I created a legal placeholder in my father's estate, basically a flag that made any transfer or asset move without dual approval legally suspicious. Most people don't know you can do that. Most people don't plan for theft within the family. Third, I contacted the credit union, said I was the executor, that we'd be initiating a retroactive transaction audit due to suspected elder financial exploitation. No accusations, just procedure. They didn't push back. By 2:00 a.m., I had a shell of protection around everything that was left. Not much, but enough to sting if she tried to dig deeper. I also ran a scan on our home network. There at Washer's second phone, hidden behind a randomized MAC address, but registered to our Wi-Fi. I flagged it for deeper inspection later. In the morning, she asked if I wanted to go to brunch. I said no. Said I had paperwork to file and just wanted some time alone. She smiled and said she understood. That's the thing about people like Samantha. They never believe you're really paying attention until it's too late. She emptied my father's account thinking she'd done it cleanly. But she didn't know what I'd already done. I wasn't just building a case. I was setting a trap. And I wanted her to walk right into it. Samantha returned 3 days after the funeral. Her hair had been lightened a few shades. Her skin carried a soft bronze glow, the kind that doesn't come from hiking trails or yoga in the desert. More like a poolside bar and an umbrella drink. She wheeled her carry-on into the kitchen like she'd been gone for a conference, not the death of my father. "Hey, babe," she said, setting her bag down and walking over with a smile that looked practiced. She kissed my cheek, then held it there. Maybe a beat too long. "You look tired." "Yeah," I said. "It's been a week." She pulled back and gave me that soft, almost maternal look. "You were so strong through all this. I'm really proud of you." I nodded once. Didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything. She poured herself a glass of wine, took a slow sip. Then, without even glancing up, "Did your dad leave anything? I mean for us? The house, accounts, life insurance?" I turned to face her, leaned against the counter. She smiled, like it was casual curiosity. But her eyes were doing something else, tracking, measuring, probing for soft spots. "He left what he thought was appropriate," I said. "That's good," she said quickly, recovering. "He worked so hard. Would have been nice to see something come of it." I watched her sip again. She didn't ask how the service went. Didn't ask who showed up. Just smiled and shifted the conversation toward real estate taxes and probate timelines. I didn't give her anything. No names, no numbers, no paper trails. "I've got a meeting with the estate lawyer tomorrow," I said. "He's finalizing everything." She nodded, biting her lip thoughtfully. "I'd be happy to come. You shouldn't have to handle all this on your own." "Appreciate it," I said. "But I've got it covered." She smiled again. "Of course." We ate dinner like everything was fine. She scrolled through her phone between bites. I cleared the dishes. Said goodnight early. Later that night, I opened her second phone's backup remotely. A message thread with a contact saved as Ethan, legal, showed a list of assets. My dad's house, my dad's account, my dad's name. She wasn't just circling anymore. She was closing in. The lawyer's office smelled like old carpet and lemon polish. He greeted us with a thin smile and too many "so sorry for your loss" comments before we even sat down. Samantha wore a muted black dress. Tasteful. Fitted. She hadn't worn it to the funeral because she wasn't there. I sat with my hands folded on the table. She leaned in, pen ready. Like this was a business meeting. The will was one page. Simple. My father never liked making things complicated. The lawyer cleared his throat and read it aloud. "I, Harold Briggs, being of sound mind, do hereby leave all assets, properties, and financial holdings to my son, Daniel Briggs. No secondary beneficiaries are named. All decisions regarding the estate are to be made solely by him. This is my final and complete testament." Silence. I already knew what it said. I'd read it weeks ago, but I kept my face blank. Neutral. Samantha blinked, smiled. "Oh, well, I guess that makes things straightforward." The lawyer nodded. "It simplifies the process considerably." She gave a little laugh. "Your dad was nothing if not efficient." But I saw her eyes move, left to right, scanning the page like she was trying to find the clause she'd somehow missed, the one that included her. There wasn't one. "No trusts?" she asked. "No. Life insurance?" The lawyer looked at me. I shook my head. "All accounted for privately," I said. "Already handled." She nodded slowly. "That's good. He probably just wanted to make it easy on you." I didn't respond, just kept watching her eyes. Every flicker, every twitch. She didn't look at me again, just kept searching the paper like it might change under enough scrutiny. The lawyer handed me a folder. "You'll need to sign here and here. We'll begin the transfer of title and the remaining assets." Samantha cleared her throat, standing. I'll give you 2 a minute. Not necessary, I said. We're done. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at me like she couldn't figure out what had gone wrong, like a plan had failed and she didn't know where the leak was. I signed the papers. She walked out before I finished. I watched her go without saying a word. This wasn't confusion. This was panic. And it was just getting started. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't flip the table or ask why she was sending financial projections to a man named Ethan. Instead, I installed 2 small cameras in the living room clock, another in the hallway smoke detector. Both motion activated. Both streaming to a private cloud drive she didn't know existed. While Samantha microwaved oat milk lattes and posted filtered grief reflections to her private Instagram, I backed up every device in the house. Her laptop. Her tablet. Her old phone she thought was wiped. She still hadn't noticed I'd mirrored her inbox. I'd set it up months ago when I first saw her texting from her lock screen with a brightness level set to 0. Most people hide secrets in the dark. Samantha just hid them in plain sight, assuming no one was watching. Ethan Prescott. That was his full name. She'd saved him in her contacts as Ethan Legal, which was generous, considering he wasn't a lawyer. He was a wealth advisor who operated out of a rented suite in a downtown office building. No website, no credentials, but he wrote long emails with phrases like asset shielding and marital restructuring. One message thread caught my eye. Ethan. If Daniel's father left everything to him, there's still time to reposition those assets before probate closes. Samantha. I can get access. He trusts me. He's still grieving. Timing is perfect. I didn't react. Just flagged the message, encrypted it, and stored it off-site. She came home from yoga that night, humming, her mat slung over one shoulder, phone already in her hand. She kissed me like nothing had changed. I kissed her back. Because it hadn't. Not yet. Confrontation is emotional. Documentation is permanent. While she showered, I downloaded every email thread. I had a flash drive in the floor vent and a mirrored copy stored in 3 separate encrypted folders under meaningless file names. She thought I was grieving. I was preparing. She'd made a mistake assuming I'd collapse under the weight of my father's death. But I'd grown up with a man who survived loss with silence and structure. She could plan all she wanted. But I was already 10 moves ahead. Ethan Prescott wasn't hard to find. The kind of predator who thinks confidence is the same thing as invisibility. He had a LinkedIn page last updated 3 years ago, a blurry headshot cropped from a wedding, and 3 vague job titles: consultant, advisor, strategist. But people like Ethan always leave a trail. I started by searching court dockets in surrounding counties. 2 civil suits popped up within an hour, both settled, both sealed, both involving financial misrepresentation and elder exploitation. The first was filed by the daughter of a 78-year-old man who signed over power of attorney after investment coaching. The second involved a hospice nurse and a suspicious home equity line of credit. Samantha's name wasn't in either, but her fingerprints were all over the method. I pulled phone records next. Ethan and Samantha had exchanged over 120 calls in the past 6 months, most lasting longer than 10 minutes. A few were during the week my father was actively dying. The pattern was clear. Ethan wasn't helping her plan for the future. He was helping her erase mine. Each case followed a sequence: someone sick, someone dying, someone distracted. Then Ethan appeared, sometimes as a consultant, sometimes as a romantic interest, but always at the edge of vulnerability, smiling, coaching, positioning. I found one photo on a Facebook album from a community fundraiser in Tucson. Ethan, in a blazer 2 sizes too tight, standing next to a woman who looked like Samantha with darker hair. A caption tagged him as a financial coach for caregivers. It was almost impressive, the scale of it. Quiet theft, dressed up as advice. He didn't break into bank accounts. He waited for the door to be unlocked by someone trusted. People like Samantha. I compiled everything: screenshots, court records, metadata, phone logs. I created a master folder labeled EP exploitation pattern and stored it across 5 separate encrypted drives, each one backed up and disconnected from the internet. If something happened to me, that folder would go public. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, about watching someone you trusted become the architect of your collapse. Samantha thought she was cleaning up behind her, but I was recording every footprint, and I was almost ready to let her know. I waited until she left for her morning run. Same route, same timing, AirPods in, music loud, the world tuned out. Then I opened a secure browser, created a burner email account with a generic name and 0 recovery options, and composed a single message to samanthabriggs@email.com. Subject: Did Ethan tell you I already knew? There was no message in the body, just 2 attachments. The first was a screenshot from my father's credit union statement. The transaction history, clean and damning, 4 transfers totaling over 67,000, each time-stamped, each leading to her personal bank. The second was a still frame from hotel security footage. Samantha, walking beside Ethan, her hand brushing his arm. They weren't posing. It wasn't performative. Just a moment of relaxed complicity captured from a lobby camera she'd forgotten existed. I didn't sign the email. Didn't add any threats. Didn't need to. I clicked send. Then I logged into the home network admin panel and watched her phone ping as the message arrived. She opened it within 30 seconds. The attachments downloaded automatically. I saw the Wi-Fi spike, the file size match. No reply. Just silence. Exactly as expected. She returned 38 minutes later. Sweating. Breathless. But not from the run. I was at the kitchen table sipping coffee. My laptop open but idle. She dropped her keys into the bowl like always. Then she hovered behind me, a second too long. Morning, I said. She nodded. Hey, sleep okay? Fine. She made tea, but her hands weren't steady. She didn't drink it. That afternoon, I noticed the guest bedroom door was closed. That's where we kept the printer, some storage bins, and an old external hard drive she didn't know I'd cloned last month. She spent 2 hours in there. When I checked my logs later, I saw the attempt's 3 failed password guesses on my laptop, 2 failed logins on the backup server. Then she stopped. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Let her panic. Let her scramble. Every key she pressed was already recorded. Every move she made backed up and time-stamped in 3 locations. She thought I'd blink, that I'd ask questions. But I already had the answers. And now, she knew I did. By the end of the week, Samantha wasn't smiling anymore. She hovered in doorways, started conversations she never finished, brought me coffee in the morning, then watched too closely when I drank it. She hadn't mentioned Ethan once. I didn't either. Instead, I let the silence stretch, watched her shift beneath the weight of it. She tried a new tactic Saturday night, came into my office while I was reviewing estate documents, leaned against the doorframe like we were in a sitcom. Everything okay? She asked. Sure. She nodded slowly, biting her lip. You've just been distant. I looked up, just sorting things out. From the will? From everything. She crossed the room and sat on the edge of the desk. Close, but not too close. I've been thinking, she said, about us, about trust. It's important, right? Very. Her eyes flicked to my screen. Sometimes I wonder if we're hiding things from each other, like emotionally or otherwise. I said nothing. She leaned in. You'd tell me if something was wrong, wouldn't you? I smiled. Would you? She blinked. Just for a second. But I saw it. That night she tried again. This time, it was my email. 3 access attempts. One from her laptop, one from her tablet, one from her second phone which she hadn't used in days. I had them all flagged. My system sent screenshots of each failed login to my cloud archive with IP stamps and device IDs. She was searching for confirmation, for control, for anything she could still spin. I let her. Every attempt to delete something? Logged. Every file she opened and tried to rename? Copied. Every folder she dragged to the trash? Mirrored in a hidden partition. The trap wasn't closing yet, but it was tightening. She didn't know that her second phone's microphone activated twice while she whispered calls in the backyard. She didn't know the old smoke detector in the hall had night vision. She only knew something was wrong. And whatever it was, wasn't in control of it. Sunday morning, she slammed a kitchen cabinet and muttered something about boundaries. I finished my coffee. Didn't flinch. Let her unravel. The hardest part of watching a person destroy themselves is not rushing to help. But I'd learned how to wait, and she was almost done. I met with my father's estate attorney in a quiet office above a deli. Hardwood floors. No nonsense. Just folders and facts. His name was Denton, a man with iron-gray hair and the kind of voice that didn't waver when delivering bad news. Or, in this case, orders. "I'm not filing for theft," I said. "That's too soft." He looked up. "What do you have in mind?" I placed the folder on his desk. Inside were bank statements, internal audit reports, screenshots, phone records, email threads, and a notarized copy of the will. I'd labeled every tab. "Fraudulent misappropriation of a vulnerable adult's assets," I said, "and a civil suit for emotional distress based on sustained deceit and financial manipulation during end-of-life care." Denton didn't flinch. He'd seen worse. "She's your wife," he said, like it was a reminder. Or a warning. "Was." He nodded. "You want to name the other party?" "Ethan Prescott. Financial co-conspirator." I handed him a second folder. Court documents. Civil suits from 2 other states. Pattern of behavior. He'll try to claim he's an advisor, but he's not licensed, not registered, not even insured. Denton thumbed through the file. "You've done your homework." I didn't respond. I wasn't there for compliments. "Freeze her accounts," I said. "Assets, too. The house, the vehicles, any joint property with her name. I want everything locked." He nodded. "Already typing. And I want her served without warning. No ceremony." She was in the garden when the papers arrived, sipping tea, scrolling her phone, pretending the last 2 weeks hadn't happened. The courier didn't flinch when she screamed. Ethan was served the same day, during a client lunch at a restaurant downtown. I watched from a parked car across the street. He looked confused at first, then angry, then scared. The subpoenas included everything, and the documents were airtight. I didn't have to accuse either of them. The evidence would do that for me. By the end of the week, their lawyers were calling Denton, trying to settle, to discuss terms. We didn't respond. Let them squirm. Let them feel the weight of something they couldn't manipulate. My father had trusted me to guard his legacy, and now I was. The courtroom smelled like bleach and old paper. Samantha wore gray, soft wool, modest neckline, no makeup, her hair pulled back to look humble, helpless. Ethan wore a suit 2 sizes too tight and a face he'd practiced in the mirror contrite, confused. Above it all, they both took the stand. She went first. The tears came early, timed somewhere between her recounting of emotional distance and not understanding probate. She said she thought the money was a gift, that she was trying to help reposition assets for our future. Denton asked one question. "Were you helping your husband," he said, "or helping yourself?" Her mouth opened, then closed. No answer. The courtroom was silent. Then Ethan took the stand. He denied everything. Said he didn't know Samantha was married. Said he never discussed my father's estate. Said he was just giving general advice. Denton didn't say a word. Instead, he played the audio. The backyard call. Samantha whispering that he doesn't know yet, and we can move on the accounts this week. Ethan agreeing, mentioning the word shielding. Then came the email. If Daniel's father left everything to him, there's still time to reposition those assets. Ethan's face drained. Samantha dropped her eyes. The judge didn't need long. Restitution was ordered. Every cent, plus damages. Samantha's access to my father's estate was permanently revoked. Ethan was barred from practicing any form of financial advising for life. But the real sentence was simpler. Samantha Briggs guilty of financial elder abuse. The gavel didn't echo. It landed like a final period at the end of a long, bitter sentence. I didn't gloat. Didn't smile. Didn't even look at them as I walked past. Samantha didn't speak. Ethan kept staring at the floor like it owed him an explanation. Denton clapped me once on the back outside the courthouse. You want to celebrate? No. I got in my car and drove home. Quiet road. No music. Just the sound of tires on pavement and a cold kind of closure. My father always said character shows when no one's watching. I'd watched. And I'd responded. Not with rage, but with consequence. The new headstone stood clean and simple, just the way he would have wanted. Harold Briggs, 1948, 2023. He did the job. No frills, no fake poetry, just truth. I knelt down and placed the flowers, white lilies, his favorite. The ground was still fresh in patches, soft under my boots. A breeze carried the smell of cut grass and early autumn. 3 months had passed since the courtroom. Samantha left town 2 weeks after the verdict. Quietly. No goodbye. I heard from Denton that she'd taken a job somewhere in Arizona. No forwarding address. No new number. Good. Ethan wasn't so lucky. The charges stuck. Wire fraud, conspiracy, elder exploitation. He got 5 years. Maybe less with good behavior. I didn't care. He was someone else's problem now. As for Mimi father's estate, closed officially last week. The funds transferred. The house signed over. The title, clean. I inherited what he left me. But that wasn't what mattered most. I protected it. Protected him. After the grave, I drove to the storage unit on the edge of town. The one he used for 30 years. Tucked between a fire station and an abandoned strip mall. I still had the key. Still remembered the code he taught me at 17. The metal door creaked open. Same scent of sawdust and motor oil. I found the wooden box on the top shelf. Plain. Heavy. I carried it to the workbench and opened the latch. Inside, his old Navy knife. A worn photo of my mother. A pocket watch that hadn't ticked in decades. And under it all, a folded envelope with my name in his handwriting. I opened it carefully. Daniel. You were always the one who saw things clearly. You don't jump to conclusions. You pay attention. That's rare. If you're reading this, I'm gone. And something's probably happened that made you have to be the strong one again. Just do what you always do. Protect what matters. And don't let anyone make you feel small for doing it. I trust you. I always have. Dad. I sat there for a long time. Didn't cry. Didn't need to. The fight was over. The silence was mine again. Not empty, but earned. Outside, the wind picked up. Leaves shifted across the concrete, like time passing slowly, deliberately. I closed the box and locked the door behind me. This story was brutal. But this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.